Hello, my name is 환산스님, and this is Sun Meditation in English. I would like to welcome all of you and our viewers at home to a very special episode of our program. In collaboration with the Seoul University Buddhist Student Association, I am now sitting in the lovely campus of Seoul University with our Seoul University students and some of our international exchange students to discuss meditation. Question that I would like to consider today is what possible use and role that religion and spiritual practice can play in what I think is now even a cliche to call the age of technology. I think it's taken for granted that we now live in an age of technology. And what I mean by that is we are now living in a culture and a society where there is no part of our lives that is not managed by some technological product or machine or device or tool. There is no part of our bodies that we don't manage with some form of technology. This is how pervasive technology has become in our lives and in the way we conduct, in the way that we run our society and in the way that we even understand our own culture now. I think many, if not most people now believe that all of our problems, both on the global level and on the individual level, all of these problems can be solved by technology. So if we have that kind of a viewpoint, then it's reasonable to ask, and I think many modern people do ask, when they're confronted by religion or by so-called spiritual practices, they ask the question, well, is there any use for religion anymore? Is there any use for spiritual practices like meditation or prayer or whatever kinds of practices the various traditions perform? So that is the question that I would like to address with all of our students today. Now, I think when you ask a question like that, is religion still relevant? Is spiritual practice still have a place in our lives? When you ask a question like that, I think there's an assumption that somehow technology and spirituality are two completely different things. They're almost opposite things, and you can't really do them at the same time. And I think many people who consider themselves spiritual will look at technology and think, well, it's very artificial, it's very inhuman, it's dehumanizing, it makes us robotic. And then they point to some of the devastating, admittedly devastating sort of side effects of our technological development. The damage to the environment, pollution, the development of terrifying weapons, and they'll say there can be a tendency to demonize technology, to think that technology is harmful on a spiritual level, on a human level. So that's sort of a stance that many people who think of themselves as spiritual can take. On the other hand, those who are very much in support of technology may look at things like religion and spiritual practice and think, well, it's kind of obsolete. It's unreasonable, doesn't follow principles of logic, and some may even go so far as to say it's actually damaging. Religions tend to be authoritarian. They develop cultures of absolute obedience. They don't treat women very well, and its time has passed. So that's a criticism that can be leveled against various religious traditions, and there's some truth to claims like that. But I think that if we look at technology and spirituality as two opposite things, I think that we're missing an opportunity here for a very valuable kind of conversation. And what I would like to suggest today is that instead of focusing on the differences between technology and spiritual practice, we might try to find a common point. And superficially, this common point may seem almost not to exist because they seem so different. But I would like to suggest here that actually spirituality and technology have the most important thing in common. And what that common thing is, they share the same goal. Both proponents of technology and proponents of spirituality want basically the same thing. They want human beings to live healthy and happy lives. What's really different between technology, a technological approach to managing life, and a spiritual approach to managing life, the main difference is strategy, method. How are we going to get to a point where we can live healthy and happy lives? So I would like to say here that technology, for all its complexity, is actually something very simple. Its approach is very, very simple. And basically what technology says, or the approach that it uses, is we're going to try and shape and mold the natural environment and the things in our natural environment to serve human beings. And that's a reasonable thing to do. Okay? The spiritual approach is we're going to mold and transform our bodies and our minds so that we can live and thrive in the environment that's given to us. Totally opposite approach, but again aimed at the same goal. And what I would like to say here is that the two strategies are not mutually exclusive. You can actually do both. Albert Einstein very famously said once that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. And I think he was trying to say that we're at an age where we need both, and I'm in full agreement with that. Now, I'm not saying that I completely agree with this statement, because I can't speak for other religions, but I actually don't believe that Buddhism without science is blind. As I've told you previously, I follow a master, my teacher, Sun Master Songdam, and he's the most clear-sighted person I've ever met, and he's no scientist. But the first part of Einstein's statement, that science without religion is lame, I think there could be something to that. And by that, I don't mean to initiate a criticism against science. What I would like to point out here is that we've gotten to a point, I believe, where we're over-dependent on technology. That we're asking technology to do too many things for us. And I believe that one of the unfortunate side effects, one of the dangerous side effects of that is that we don't get to develop our own bodies and minds as much. Not only have we given up, consigned almost all of our physical activities to machines to do for us, but now with computers and things like that, we're asking them to perform all of our mental tasks as well. And so we're becoming, I think, less developed than we could be. And I'll give you a very simple, I'll give you a simple example of that. I'm one of those very old people who can remember life without the internet, computers, and cell phones. And when I was young, a long, long time ago, all of the phones were attached by cords to walls, and you had to make phone calls like that. There were no cell phones. And so the problem was, if you go outside and you want to make a phone call, you have to go find a payphone. Do you guys know what a payphone is? All right. Okay, so you have to go find a payphone. And then the problem is then, of course, that you have to remember the phone numbers. So I used to carry this little pad with with all the important phone numbers. But the thing was that I can remember that I and most people would carry dozens of phone numbers in our heads. We had memory, and now I can't remember my own phone number. I have a little cell phone where I push a button and it does everything for me. So, but I do think that I've lost some memory here, and I'm wondering that if the younger generation even ever got to the point of developing their memory in that way, where they can carry information long term, and it was integrated into my body enough that if I thought of someone, I just push their number without even thinking about it. That my mind and my body could work together like that. That's gone. So I think that's an example of what's happening here. So when Einstein says science without religion is lame, I think what he means is that people might be becoming more lame. Another example I'll give that's much more recognizable is the physical fitness industry. All right, you go down any street in Seoul and you'll see health clubs and gyms and places teaching, martial arts and different kinds of sports. why does it exist? Why does a physical fitness industry exist? And the answer to that question, this isn't a test, the answer to that question is because modern life no longer gives us enough exercise. If modern life lived on its own terms, without exercising, without making time to exercise separately, will make us sick. We will not be developed enough physically to live healthy and happy lives. So we had to develop this entire new culture of personal exercise to compensate for the deficiency of an overly technological society. This is an example that we're living right in the middle of and we don't realize it. This has pervaded the Buddhist monastic system as well. When I first started out as a monk, monks didn't exercise. There was just too much physical labor to do. Every morning after our meeting, we went up to our Dharma hall and we carried around, 40-kilogram bags of rice. So that was plenty of exercise, and we did all this field work and stuff. Then, as our temple grew larger, we hired employees, we put in computers. There were all these wonderful construction machines that came in and did all of our work for us. And now for the last, 15 years, I have to worry about staying in shape. I have to incorporate exercise into my life. So it has even affected traditional religious communities. So this is on the physical level, and I think that our over-dependence on technology has affected us mentally too. I think that people are losing their ability to sustain concentration on a single object or idea or thought for long periods of time. I think that all of us on some level are starting to have ADD, attention deficit disorder. And the way that our lives are constructed now, we are constantly bombarded by perceptual stimuli, constantly bombarded by information. Of all the things, of all the people around me in my life, no one talks to me as much as my cell phone. This thing is always sending me messages, making me look at advertisements and stuff like that. So I can't focus on anything unless I, ignore my cell phone. So this is the life we're living, and we may be losing our ability to concentrate on things for long periods of time. That used to be called contemplation. I don't know that that word is even used anymore in our culture, but we're losing a mental function as a result of our life as we live it now. And this has become this has become very, very evident to me because I first started teaching college students meditation around 15 years ago. And when I sat them down and had them do meditation for the first time, these are, raw beginners, they would sit for, say, 15 to 20 minutes. Now when I teach students, they sit for 5 minutes. That's as long as they can sit for before they have this kind of, deep need for some kind of information stimulus, and their bodies become. So there's been an actual recognizable change here. So this is, I think, a danger or a harmful side effect that a life without spiritual practice, a life without spiritual development poses to us. So to paraphrase Einstein's famous quote, I think that a society without a vibrant culture of spiritual practice has no way to stop technology from making us lame. Now, when I say this, I'm not saying that there should be no technology. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we should get rid of electricity and get rid of computers and get rid of vaccine shots and we all go back to nature, live in caves and make fire with our hands. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to point out is that of all the machines and amazing things that we've made, nonetheless, the human body and mind is still the most advanced. Shall we call it a piece of technology? Shall we call ourselves technology? It's still the most advanced thing out there. There is nothing out there that can perform what the brain does. There is nothing out there that can do what our body does, what an average human body does. I'm not talking about Olympic athletes and dancers and things like that. Just a normal human body. And if you look out at the world, we are still the model upon which all machines are built. Every single machine out there basically is an imitation of a human body. A shovel is a hand that goes into the earth. You know, even weapons, a gun that shoots a bullet is basically a flying fist. You know, that one that's much harder to stop, of course. Every computer is based on the human mind, and that's how they develop computers. They may have machines that do things bigger than us and faster than us, but no machine can do all the things that we can. We are still our own greatest resource. So, you know, you're all students. Don't you want to learn about what your own bodies and minds are capable of? I think that this is a big thing that's missing in our modern educational system. As you attend, you know, this wonderful educational institution, I want you to notice that when you are here in your classes, what you are learning about is the world and how to live in the world. But no one here is teaching you, no one is giving you an instruction manual for yourselves. Everything else is systematized. The way we learn things about the world is highly systematized, and there's a procedure for everything. You want to be a doctor, go to med school. You want to be a lawyer, go to law school. You can do all those things, but when you want to know, what am I? What is the nature of my existence? What am I capable of? What are the attributes? What are all the attributes and functions and possibilities of my body and mind? No one is teaching that to you in a systematic way. That has traditionally been the province of religion and spiritual practice. And this is why I believe there's still a place for religion and spiritual practice in our society and in our lives. And we do ourselves you know, a great injustice if we deprive ourselves of this. In the end, I have nothing but admiration for scientists. Scientists, by definition, by their own self-definition, are dedicated to studying and understanding the material universe that seems to surround us, including the material processes that seem to define us as human beings, both biologically and psychologically. I think that's a noble, worthy pursuit that has saved, you know, uncountable number of lives. And I personally find their discoveries and innovations breathtaking and amazing. But I do think that we should also give some consideration to spiritual practitioners. Spiritual practitioners, by their self-definition, are dedicated to exploring the inner universe of our consciousness. And according to them, the inner universe is just as vast, just as infinite as the outer universe around us. And the methods that spiritual practitioners use, we don't use empirical observation and controlled experimentation and things like that. But nonetheless, I think it's safe to say that the insights and observations that they have made can be of value to all of us. In my mind, what I personally believe as a product of both the modern world and now of a traditional Buddhist monastic system, what I personally believe is that one day scientists and spiritual practitioners will meet at the same endpoint. What is that endpoint? A radiant vision of all that is. The American poet T.S. Eliot said almost 100 years ago, "Where is the wisdom that we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge that we have lost in information?" So what is information? We use that word all the time. I think it's safe to say that information is basically facts. So what are facts? Facts are, let's say, accurate but partial, limited descriptions of things or situations. So then what is knowledge? Knowledge is the organization of information to form coherent pictures or narratives or schemes of whatever it is that we're trying to study, so that we can generate general conclusions and make accurate predictions. Then where does wisdom fit into all of this? And what I would like to say, what I would like to propose here is that wisdom, this is the Buddhist definition, wisdom endows us with direct insight, direct perception of what a situation is or what a thing is, so that we will know which knowledge and which information to use. Now, the really interesting thing here The most radical claim that Buddhism makes about wisdom is that wisdom is not a function of intelligence. Wisdom is not accumulated knowledge, it's not accumulated facts, according to Buddhism. Therefore, the modern educational system, which provides training in problem solving and interpretation and calculation and things like that, all of these functions will not lead to wisdom, according to Buddhism. Wisdom depends on our ability to develop our power of attention, our ability to direct our attention at the object or target of our choice and keep it there for as long as we like. That is a totally different kind of skill, one that we're not currently trained in modern society. And when we are able, in Buddhist formal terminology, this is called samadhi or concentration, and that is said to lead to wisdom. And what wisdom here is a deep penetrating insight into whatever it is that you're looking at, so that not only do you see the thing or the situation for what it is, but you see into it. You see into the nature of the thing. You don't see just what it is as it stands here now. You see its possibilities. And you see the network of relationships that it has with the surrounding universe. The extraordinary thing about wisdom is that it is both panoramic and laser focused at the same time. It is unlike anything that is being taught right now in our modern educational system, and it is what we are in danger of losing. My teacher, Sun Master Songdam, says that without this spiritual wisdom, we may have trouble surviving all the dangers of the technology that we have created. I think it's a cliche at this point to say that we are living in an age where human beings have historically unprecedented power. What do I mean by power? What I mean by power is the ability to influence our natural world and each other human beings. We have an unprecedented level of ability to influence all of those things. And what is the consequence of that? What is the consequence of power without wisdom? The consequence, we're living actually in the consequences of that. And the consequence is this. With that kind of power, if you make a very wise, intelligent, positive, nurturing decision, you're going to see incredible, almost miraculously positive results. You're going to see things that you've never seen before. But the danger is, on the other hand, if you make, with all that power, you make an unwise, foolish, selfish, short-term choice, you are going to see catastrophic, irreversibly damaging consequences. And we do see that around us now. So we see that with this kind of power, there is a demand for wisdom. And that is what Sun Master Songdam is trying to teach to the world, and what he wishes for someone like me to transmit to the next generation. We have a choice here. We can choose to embrace, to integrate, these ancient spiritual practice traditions back into our lives. And when we do that, we're choosing to learn how to regulate our thoughts, our emotions, and our bodies, and to elevate our level of consciousness so that we can get a greater and greater understanding of ourselves and the world around us, and to become the kind of human beings that we want to be. Now, if we choose not to do this, if we choose to reject the spiritual traditions of all the religions in the world, then I believe what's happening is that we are choosing to remain as slaves to our fears and our desires. And these fears and desires spin in a vicious cycle that's addictive. And with all of the power that technology now affords to us, there will be nothing to hold us back from this mindless, addictive lust and craving for more. More power, more wealth, more pleasure. And when we fall into that kind of unrestrained craving and lust, we begin to engage in what ironically scientists hate the most, which is irrational behavior. In fact, insane behavior. We start in the quest for more, we begin to undertake actions that will not only be harmful to those around us, not only be harmful to this planet, which is the only place in the universe that we can live on, but which are actually harmful to ourselves. So I think that if we want to avoid this fate, we do need to reincorporate spiritual practice back into our educational system, into the institutions of our society, and ultimately into our own culture. So that's what I would like to convey to you, and that is what I would like to share with you. And now what I would like to do is share with you the method of performing meditation, and you can try it out for yourselves, and you can judge for yourselves whether you like it or not. Okay? So, it's very, very simple. In sun meditation, you only need to pay attention to three things: posture, breathing, and thought. So let's start with posture, okay? Straighten your body, balance your body. Your bodies and minds are connected. When you straighten, balance, and relax your body, your mind will follow. So just holding this position should stabilize your mental state. And you should feel yourself calming down just by sitting in this very balanced and relaxed way. So this is step one to gaining mastery over our own minds. Now we go into step two, breathing. So we inhale through our nose more slowly and more gently than usual. Just nice and easy, we inhale, and as we inhale, we push out our lower belly. Okay, we push out our lower belly as if the air is going into a balloon in our gut and filling that balloon. So you breathe in through your nose, keep your chest still, and push out your lower belly. And when your lower belly feels comfortably full, about 80% full, we just hold for 2 to 3 seconds. And then we pull in our lower belly, we pull in our belly button toward our spine, and exhale nice and long and easy through our nose again. Okay? And now we enter into the third level of meditation, which is the most important. Thinking, what do we think about? And here we find the distinctive feature of traditional Korean Sun Buddhist meditation. In Sun Buddhist meditation, we will be thinking about a question that we ask ourselves. And this question in Korean is called hwadu. And we coordinate it with our breathing. So I'm going to teach you the question in Korean. The question in Korean is 이 무엇고. In English spelling, that's Y-I, which means this, M-W-O-T, which means what, and G-O-Ko, which means is. So what is this? That's the question. And what that question means is, what is this that directs my body? When someone calls my name, what is it within me that instantly reacts to the sound of my own name? When I feel joy, what is it within me that's delighting in that joy? We're going to ask that question to ourselves. Now remember, the goal of sun meditation is direct insight, direct perception. So we're not going to look for an intellectual label. Whatever you've learned in school right now won't work here in meditation. You know, we're not looking for a fancy name to call it, like soul or, you know, consciousness or mind or awareness. Okay, those are just labels. We want to directly perceive and witness the reality of our own existence, that thing within me that experiences life. So we just ask the question to ourselves with the highest level of urgency and sincerity and honesty and authenticity. And when we do that, when we ask that question to ourselves with the utmost seriousness, we create in our minds what is called the state of doubt. Now, doubt is not a form of skepticism. So you're trying to know the unknowable. You're trying to perceive the unperceivable. And when that happens, you get to a state of mind that Sun Buddhists traditionally call being blocked, being obstructed. This is the question of our lives. Okay? Now, the way we ask this question in meditation is we coordinate it with our breathing. We do the abdominal breathing in this posture. We breathe in, hold, and as we breathe out in our minds, we ask, Imoko. And we take that last syllable, G-O, and we drag it out all the way to the end of our out breath. Okay? It takes a little bit of practice. So why don't we all try it together out loud? Okay? So go into meditation. Breathe in. Hold. And then together out loud, Imoko. Once again, breathe in. Hold. And then breathe out, Imoko. And as we do this, we create the state of doubt in our minds and our bodies. And one of the features of this doubt is that it's like a fire that burns away all of our useless thoughts and emotions. It even burns away thoughts and emotions that are under the surface of consciousness, even our unconscious thoughts and feelings. So the more we do this, the more clarity we have in our minds and in our thinking. The more we increase and enhance our powers of direct perception, direct insight into things, into life itself. And we are directing our attention in toward ourselves. Now, I want to very much encourage all of you to not only take up this meditation, but if you're going to go to the trouble to learn how to sit like this, breathe like this, and do this meditation, then I will encourage you to perform meditation with the goal of enlightenment, to believe that you are capable of gaining enlightenment, capable of gaining true wisdom, capable of recognizing, seeing, perceiving your own true nature and the nature of this world that we live in together. These days, meditation is often advertised for its health benefits. And it does provide all sorts of health benefits. But for you who are gathered here today, studying like this, in an institution like this, why settle for such limited benefits? Why not set yourself the goal of enlightenment? You will gain much more. You'll gain all the health benefits, all these other side benefits anyway, but you will find, if you perform this meditation with a spiritual orientation, you will find that it will provide you and it will give to you far more than you can imagine as you sit here at the beginning of this. So this is something that I very much want to recommend to you. And in closing, I would like to just reiterate one thing that I said before, is that you are now in a time in your lives where you can devote yourself exclusively to study, to learning. This time does not come again. This is a privilege. It is an amazing privilege, the privilege of education. It is one that Korea in particular worked very hard to get to. You will not have this time again in your life where you can just learn. Later you have to get jobs, you have to work, and you have all these other responsibilities that compete with our own education. So I ask you to take advantage of this precious time in your life, and if you're going to learn about yourselves, the nature of your own body, the nature of your own mind, the nature of consciousness, the nature of our experience of life. Learn it now. Learn who and what you are now, so that you are better prepared to face the challenges of life after graduation. Okay? Thank you very, very much for listening. Thank you very, very much for coming out here. And now what I'd like to do is, if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Is there any questions?
명상이 제가 들어서 판단하기로는 그 어떠한 일들에 대해서 마음속에 있는 잡생각이나 화 같은 것을 가라앉히고 그것을 제대로 볼 수 있도록 도움을 주는 거라고 생각하거든요. 근데 그렇다고 하더라도 우리가 어떤 사건에 대해서 선택의 순간이 왔을 때 제대로 선택을 할 수 있는 지혜를 그 명상이 직접적으로 주는 것은 아니라고 생각하는데, 우리가 그 지혜는 어디서 구할 수 있는지에 대해서도 궁금합니다.
Now the other thing is, now how does meditation lead to wisdom? That's I believe the question that you're asking. And what I was trying to say before is that when you meditate and your mind becomes clear and you don't have random thoughts and emotions. The metaphor that's used is this. Your mind becomes like the surface of a mirror. And because your mind has become a very clean, perfectly reflecting mirror, it will reflect the situation as it is. And when you can see the situation as it is, then the solution appears before you. That is the wisdom that it provides. It's like turning on a light in a room. When the light is off, the room is dark, you can't see anything, so you don't know what to do. No matter how smart you are, you don't know what to do in a dark room. Meditation is like flipping on the light. Suddenly you see the thoughts and emotions that were blinding you are gone, and you can see what's in front of you. Then you don't have to be very smart to walk to the door and open it and walk out. You just have to see. That's the difference between wisdom and intelligence. You can have an IQ of 200. If you're trapped in a dark room, it's going to be hard to find the door. You can not have an IQ of 200. You can be a normal person. You turn on the light, anybody can go and walk out the door. That's the way Buddhism presents itself. Okay, there was... Oh yeah.
I mean, human beings, we're facing lots of temptations. So what do you think about that? And can meditation also help us to expel those kind of temptations? Yeah.
Right now, in our society, what the media is telling us, what this culture is telling us, is that pleasure will bring us happiness. Physical pleasure, emotional pleasure. So the pleasure of eating good food, the pleasure of wearing nice clothing, the pleasure of being, physically attractive, the pleasure of having a lover, a boyfriend, or a girlfriend, the pleasure of success, of possessing large amounts of property, the pleasure of victory, like winning the Olympics, like the Korean skater Kim Yeona, right? We all envy people like that, right? So, and what Buddhism has to say in response to that is that the problem with pleasure is that it is temporary. It passes. And when it passes, it leaves disappointment behind. It leaves a feeling of emptiness, a feeling that something has been stolen from us. And so then we go look for more pleasure. And it's an addictive cycle. So now, in a lot of religious traditions, so then there's like an anti-pleasure approach then. And therefore, don't do all of these things that are so much fun, for young people. But that's not really the Buddhist approach, all right? The Buddhist approach is, how are we to come to terms with the experience of pleasure? How shall we make use of it? Should we resist it? Should we attach ourselves to it? And the Buddhists propose the so-called middle path. Don't attach to it. Don't resist it. Let it flow through you. Meditate. Stay centered. And when you do that, you'll be able to experience that, which is a part of life, yet it won't pull you around. It won't dominate you. It won't enslave you, and you can go on to experience the rest of living. This is an extremely important, I think, issue for young people and for young students as we come to terms with the various kinds of relationships that we have to have in society. What am I to make of all these things that are being offered to me through the media and through our modern society? Will owning a big house, will owning a big car really make us happy? Now, the really, really radical thing about the Buddhist meditative tradition is this. When we meditate and we bring ourselves to a point of inner stillness, and we get to a point where we have some level of proficiency in meditation, you will experience an inner state of clarity and purity and cleanliness and relaxation that is really rather indescribable. But what that teaches you, what that really has to teach us, is that happiness is something that we can create in our own bodies and minds. Nothing in the world can give us happiness. Happiness is a skill. It is a discipline of our minds and bodies, and if we learn how to do it at any moment in our lives, just by meditating, we can gain happiness right there. And what that means is that you don't need that much money. You don't need that much power. You don't need to be that beautiful or that amazing. You just need to know how to meditate. This is very relaxing news. I think it certainly was for me when I heard it. And it puts things into perspective. So, and the thing about the happiness produced by meditation is that there's a limitless supply of it. It's free, and there's no, bad side effects. So, I encourage you. I think, you're all learning to think for yourselves in this educational system. So, I encourage you to ask yourself questions. Compare the benefits of meditation with what with the kind of pleasures that you're experiencing in your life, in your lives as students, and make sense of it all for yourselves. And you will be the best judge. Confirm it for yourself. And that was another one of the Buddhist teachings. He said, don't take it on my authority. Confirm it within your experience. If you really want to know whether meditation can give you happiness and how much happiness meditation can give you, meditate. Okay? Any other questions?
아까 우리의 몸과 생각을 조절해서 우리의 인식 단계를 높여갈 수 있다고 말씀해 주셨는데 그렇다면 우리 인간이라는 게 무엇이라고 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
Okay. The traditional answer to the our student here asked me what is my opinion of what a human being is. So the question is, what is a human being? And the traditional answer to that is that a human being is a Buddha, one who can directly perceive the nature of his or her own existence and the nature of the reality that surrounds us. And maybe the most urgent feature of Sun Buddhist teachings is this, is that we are living in a state of self-deception. And that state of self-deception in traditional Buddhist language is called unenlightenment. In Sanskrit, avidya, which means without light. All right? In Korean, that's mumyang. It's called primal ignorance. We do not know fundamentally what we are, what we're here for, what we're supposed to do, and where we go after we die. We are ignorant of the most important conditions of our own existence. The Buddha is one who knows, one who sees all of these things, and that's just the minimum. According to the Buddhist tradition, right now scientists, I think mainstream scientists teach that our consciousness, our mind, is the product of material processes. Very quickly, atoms combine to form molecules, molecules combine to form organic molecules combine to form cells, cells form organisms, organisms get nervous systems produce consciousness. But the Asian tradition, actually all religious traditions go actually quite in the opposite direction, that mind, consciousness, creates material reality. And this claim is actually now supported by the latest empirical observations of quantum physics. And by latest, I mean it's been around for 100 years. It just hasn't, 100 years ago, scientists discovered through experimentation that material processes, at least at the subatomic level, don't attain specificity, meaning that they don't become concrete, they don't become material unless there's an observing consciousness. So we may be, as human beings, capable of much, much more than we fully realize. But that's the short answer, that what are we as human beings? We are all Buddha. And if we think we're Korean or American or French, if we think we're men or women, if we think we're Buddhist or Christian or atheist, that we are deceived and that we are very severely limiting the natural wholeness and infinitude of our true existence. Okay? Long answer for a short question. Thank you so much for your interest. This has really been a pleasure to be here. And we'll conclude here, and I will finish in Korean. 성불하십시오.